video. And today, what we're going to be doing is going through the 2020 United States Senate elections and going through the competitive races and saying why each party is not going to win or lose in that state because of candidates, money, funding, whatever it is. So, we're going to look into that. And I want to thank all of you for reaching 50 subscribers. That's a great accomplishment for the channel. And yeah, so we're going to begin with going through some of the states are going to be closer, but they're not going to be super tight. So these are going to be states like Colorado. Let's just begin with the state of Colorado. So John Hickenlooper is one of the primary candidates for the Democratic Party, and there is a big amount of people running for the Senate seat. His major opponent in the primaries is a majority leader in the state house. But honestly, John Hickenlooper will have no problem winning the primary there. And I think Cory Gardner is super unpopular in that state. For that reason, Cory Gardner will lose his Senate seat. And not even if enough funding from the Republicans, nothing will save him. I think if the Republicans want to win some states like Montana, Kansas, North Carolina, Iowa, and Arizona, they should just let Colorado go down the toilet and just go down to the drain and move to other states where their money could be more smartly put in, cause smartly invested. Cause look, you could invest all your money in the state of Kansas. Well, you won the state of Kansas, but then you let everyone else, you let the other party win all the other states. I'm gonna go from west to east. So, out of the state of Arizona, I think Mark Kelly does have enough funds, and he's very popular in the state. Martha McSally, she is a very unliked senator. She lost an election against a Kirsten Sinema in 2018, and Kirsten Sinema was a inspirational candidate for Arizonians. Kirsten Sinema was a blue dog Democrat who many Arizonians who probably voted for John McCain in 2016 when his seat was up, many of those people just see Kirsten Sinema being a maverick like John McCain. When it comes to the state of Montana, I'm going to say that Steve Daines actually might keep his Senate seat by a super duper slight margin. Why am I saying this? The Republican Party has seen that this Senate seat is important to them, and you can see them investing a lot of money into the state. You already can see on YouTube many ads. If you're not even from the state of Montana, and you still get ads from the Steve Daines campaign, and all these big Republican figures like Mitch McConnell, Florida Senator Rick Scott, Donald Trump, and most of the Republicans, because they endorse a Republican candidate, but they're spending like huge amounts of money in that Senate race. And honestly, Steve Bullock might be a great candidate. He might be super close, but at this point, the state of Montana is looking a little more in favor of Steve Daines. Steve Bullock, I think he could have easily won the House seat. But again, the Senate seat is a little more appealing because with the Senate seat, you don't have to go campaigning every 2 years. I remember that there was an interview with one of the representatives. It was Representative Ileana Ross Layton from the state of Florida. And I remember she was a former representative. And she said it sucks being a representative because when you're a representative, you finish campaigning for your term, and you have to restart campaigning for your next term. So that's why I think most Democrats in Montana want that Senate seat, because it's going to be 6 years until you have to go fight again for that Senate seat. At this point, Steve Bullock, I think, has like a 50-50 chance to beat Steve Daines, but I think Steve Daines might edge him out by a little bit. Out of the state of Texas, it's going to be a Colorado situation, but it's not really a flip. So I'm going to see here a John Cornyn seat, and he's going to have a nice Democratic challenger. It's going to be a challenge to see how far it can go. It's by no means going to get as close as Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke could have ran for the seat, brought it out even a lot closer than he brought it with Ted Cruz. But ultimately, I don't think the state of Texas will flip in this Senate seat, just because, one, it's not a super famous candidate that could easily flip the state like a Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke was like super close at flipping the state, and honestly, if he would have done it, it would have been a big accomplishment for the Democratic Party in the state of Texas. When it comes to the state of Kansas, though, What the Democrats don't win in the state of Kansas, in the state of Montana, they won in the state of Kansas. At this point, Republicans, although the party leadership in the state might not want to, it's looking like they're going to pick Chris Kobach for the nomination, which one, what are the voters thinking? Like, if they want to keep Kansas in the Republican hands, because that is what the state's identity is, why would you put up someone in a primary that's so unpopular? So we can see in this case that they put up Steve Daines, not Steve Daines, my bad, Chris Kobach, and against Barbara Bollier, which is the Democratic challenger. So at this point, this would have been an easy seat if they would have someone else would have won the nomination. The nomination's still up in the air, but it's looking like it's going to be Chris Kobach, and we're probably going to see a loss about 2 to 3 points for Chris Kobach. So the seat will go to Democrats in a lean margin in favor of Barbara Bollier. Now, with the state of Minnesota, interesting Senate seat. State of Minnesota, this seat originally, so this is Al Franken's old seat. Tina Smith won in 2018, and she won the seat, and she's now the senator. Originally, when Al Franken first was elected, this seat was super close. It was like less than 300 votes separating Al Franken and the incumbent senator at the time. So, Tina Smith, she's going to win the Senate seat. Now, by how much? I think it's going to be a bigger lean margin. So let's say that's like a 3 to 5%. 3 in a huge Republican wave scenario, which at this point, I'm just considering each individual race, so there's not going to be waves and things like that impacting. But I think it's probably going to go to 3 to 5%. So I think Democrats should not really be spending that much money in the state of Minnesota. But they should be spending a considerable amount. They shouldn't be spending too much, but not too little. Same thing in all these states. It's the Senate seat and winning back House and Senate. It's super hard because these campaigns, you have to know where to put the money. If the federal PACs, super PACs for the Democrats, start putting too much money in a race they're going to win, they just give all the other Senate seats away. Out of state of Iowa, we can see that probably going to go to the incumbent Republican by a nice margin. I think it's going to be like 2 or 3%. And honestly, for the state of Iowa, that's going to be pretty good, especially for an election year. Why do I say this? Joni Ernst is kind of popular, but is really unpopular at the same time. She's like a mediocre in popularity. She's loved by some, hated by others. So at this point, Democrats don't really have a chance at winning. They do have a chance, but again, it's very highly unlikely. Because at this point, more people in the state of Iowa are liking Donald Trump, and then by bigger margins, and then also the Democratic bases are shrinking and shrinking. So at this point, state of Iowa probably going to go to Joni Ernst by around 2 to 3 points. Now, in the state of Michigan, John James, great candidate, whatever you may say. He's a good candidate. He has potential. Unfortunately, the following things are going to happen. 1, Republicans won't even bother spending in this race. Why? Because they rather hold to their seats in the state of Montana, in the states of Georgia, in the state of North Carolina, in the state of Arizona, rather than spending it on a state that probably wouldn't have gone to them anyways. Hypothetically, if the Republicans spent enough money in that state, they probably would have won it, or have a chance at winning it. But at this point, Perry Peters, kind of popular senator, probably going to win by 3 to 5%. And look, John James was rejected by the Michigan voters. He lost the Senate seat against Debbie Stabenow in 2018. So this is recent in voters' memories. So John James, probably not a good idea for them to spend too much money there. They could try, but again, not focus on the state of Michigan. So at this point, I think Democrats will win the Senate seat in the state of Michigan. When it comes to the state of Kentucky, Mitch McConnell will have one of his closest races to date. I don't know if all of you have noticed, but Mitch McConnell's races are always by around the same margin, from 3 to 5 points. And at this point, Amy McGrath might come close, but it's not going to be that close for her to win it. Look, the state of Kentucky is growing more and more population centers, with areas like Louisville in Kentucky and areas like Lexington that are growing their populations by booming tech markets in those states, in those areas. That might bring some more Democratic voters to the area. And ultimately, Mitch McConnell should be worried because this seat's going to get a lot closer. At this point, he's going to win it. Don't get me wrong. But how much? Probably like 2 to 3%. Mitch McConnell should be worried for his seat if he's going to continue in politics by the time his next term comes, which, again, he's a politician. He's probably going to keep on going until he dies. So, at this point, next term, he should be worried, and it probably would be more of a toss-up. And honestly, right now, Democrats will probably win the majority. Their path to the majority is not as hard as some may think. It may look a little more difficult, but still, if they don't win the majority this time, they're most definitely going to win the majority in 2022. And this is only if, and if only, Donald Trump is elected president. If the Democrats are elected president, if Joe Biden is elected president, Democrats can say goodbye to the Senate in 2022. And the House, probably not, but it has a possibility of flipping in 2022. All of this, the future of the Senate is just dependent on who wins the election. And at this point, if Donald Trump wins the election, Democrats will win by landslide victories in the 2022 Senate map. Okay, where else can we go? So in the state of Georgia, there's 2 Senate races. Believe it or not, some YouTube political pundits think that the state of Georgia in the special election will be a lot closer. That is very untrue. Because in all actuality, in the special election, they have an incumbent who's running against countless amounts of people in a Republican primary. But Democrats are not running someone who's super prominent in the state. They're not running a Stacey Abrams. They're not running someone that's very popular in the state. So at this point, this seat's probably going to go by a nice margin to the Republican Party. The Republican Party will put a lot of money into the Georgia races. I think they're going to put more money into the regular Senate seat, right? When it comes to the regular Senate seat, though, I think Republicans will still win. This is David Perdue's seat. But by how much is the question again. Jon Ossoff, he's running in this Senate seat for the Senate race. Honestly, Jon Ossoff is an inspirational candidate, whatever you want to say. But it's still Georgia. You still have those reliably Republican areas that vote for the establishment Republican candidates. That's why you haven't seen a flip or more ideological changes in the state of Georgia more rapidly. As in the state of Texas, the ideology is changing completely, and the Republicans are not traditional. Out of the state of Georgia, they're very traditional Republicans. They're the John McCain type Republicans, establishment. Well, honestly, John McCain wasn't super establishment, but he kind of went to them most of the time. State of North Carolina, Tom Tillis should be worried. At this point, Cal Cunningham is doing an amazing job at running this race. The Democrats are putting enough money into the state, whereas I think we could possibly see a 1 to 2, maybe 3-point victory for Cal Cunningham in the state of North Carolina. Tom Tillis, he's losing favor, plus the scandal that he recently had amid coronavirus talks that he had to resign from the Senate Judiciary Committee, making Florida Senator Marco Rubio the new chair of that Senate committee. At this point, Tom Tillis is probably going to lose re-election. Oh, no, never mind. That was my bad. That's not Tom Tillis. That was Richard Burr. And that might actually become a problem, because then they're probably going to open up a new race in the state of North Carolina, which may bring 2 Democratic senators out of that state. This race, I think, North Carolina, it's a weird state. President-wise, they haven't voted for the Democrat in a long time. Statewide races, they have. They're voting for Roy Cooper, and they're probably going to vote for him. Roy Cooper is a popular governor. I think I'll make an update to my governor predictions later on. Last state deciding who gets the majority, if it's going to be a majority by tiebreaker or a majority by plurality of seats. At this point, it's really no question that Susan Collins is on the way out of her Senate seat. Sarah Gideon, the minority leader from the state's House, or the majority leader, my bad. She's very popular, and the Democrats are focusing a lot in the state of Maine. Susan Collins, extremely unpopular, which one is not the recipe for success in politics. Very unpopular means goodbye. I'm not voting you in. So, at this point, the Democrats' majority chances have increased a little bit, but how much has gone down? I think the biggest toss-up state at this point is the state of Montana. Steve Bullock could have an easy chance of winning this. Same thing as Steve Daines. So they kind of both are good candidates from both sides, but again, it's really up in the air. So what are our biggest takeaways from this? One, Democrats will gain majority of the Senate. So either one, making Donald Trump's life even more impossible, or two, they're going to lose the Senate majority eventually if Joe Biden is elected president. Which again could hurt them. What could also help them is Donald Trump is elected. Politics is a game of numbers. It's a game of analysis. And at this point, if I were a Democrat strategist, I would let loose some states like the state of Maine and things like that, because those states are easily going to flip later on. So there's many things that you guys must consider when you're making a prediction. And I think at this point, Democrats will have 51 Senate seats at the end of this election. Republicans will end up at 49. And Democrats will gain control of the Senate. And yeah. So again, guys, I want to thank all of you for reaching not 250 subscribers. That's when we reach 250 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway. But I want to thank you guys for reaching 50 subscribers. That is a big milestone for our channel, and it's big considering that we've only been going for a couple weeks. Again, thank you for watching and have a great day. Goodbye.